So, episode 20 of The Marginal Fly Fisherman. I want to talk a little bit about why I chose to fly fish. I didn't really choose to fly fish. I thought it would be cool and I tried it. I guess why I think it's so awesome. Really. Because I get people that ask me all the time, well, do you catch more fish fly fishing than spin fishing? On some days, yeah. On some days, heck no. It goes back and forth. I mean, listen, how many bass tournaments do you see with guys fly fishing? It's all spin fishing. That ought to tell you something. I won't pull any punches. This is the way it is. I also know some guys with fly rods, though, that would give anybody with a spinning rod a run for their money. It's what you're comfortable with and what you want to get out of it. And if you're not getting out of it what you want, then you're not going to do it. To me, it's a deeper thing. I hate to use the word spiritual because I'm not a spiritual person. I think I'm fairly, I guess you'd call me a realist. I know what I see and I go with it, or I know what I see and I leave it alone because I know it's something I don't want. But I'm also a bit of a sentimentalist, and I've been accused of being a romantic. I get all that now. So I'm gonna read a little bit from Reflections of a Fly Rod, my first book, and kind of maybe you'll understand a little more why I latched on to fly fishing, and maybe it'll make you want to try it. My whole point with all of this, my Facebook page, my YouTube channel, my Instagram, writing the books, everything, honestly, is because I know what I found in life and I wish I had found it sooner, and I want other people to read what I have to say, hear what I have to say, and really think about it, and maybe something will click in their head, and next thing you know, they're going to be unplugging, calling in sick from work, going hiking, going fishing, and kind of reprioritizing their lives. That's my whole point. So, stuff I get out of fly fishing, why I latched on to fly fishing so hard. The first story in Reflections of a Fly Rod, this is the first story, right? Yeah, it's after the introduction. Is actually called Reflections of a Fly Rod. And I'm just going to read the first paragraph. It's only 9 feet of graphite and a handful of cork. It's such a simple thing, not a complicated device by any means, practically a stick in the simplest of descriptions. Yet to really immerse myself into the backstory of how all this came about, of what it does for my mind, of the things I feel when I stand at the water, of the things I don't feel because I stand at the water, it stirs up more questions and answers that lead to still more questions and answers. So I may start to see that if there's really no meaning to life, if by some chance we weren't each put on this planet to do something specific, then the odds of falling into something that feels like just that it's what you're meant to do, they must be so small and remote in such a vast time and place that it seems proof enough that there must be a master plan for my life somewhere. The meaning of life is in my grasp, literally at my fingertips. That is exactly how I feel now that fly fishing has taken a hold of my life. I used to ride motorcycles, and everybody, and I still hear it all the time, I just heard it the other night, everybody used to say, oh, I gotta go ride, I gotta clear my mind. And I never got that out of riding. When I was riding, I had nothing to do but think. The whole clearing my mind thing did not work with riding a motorcycle. With some people it does, apparently. I thought it did, but you know, at some point I realized my mind isn't clear. I go out and I ride and I do nothing but think about all the stuff that's stressing me out because I'm doing nothing but riding. I'm not really focusing on anything. So I focus on the stuff that's stressing me out. Riding did not work. Fly fishing, on the other hand, everything is gone because I'm focusing on the fishing and I get lost in my surroundings. It works. That's what this whole first paragraph in this book is about. But then it came to me one day another thing that's really cool. It's not like I picked up fly fishing and I wasn't an outdoorsman before. All I did was fish. All I did was fish. When I was in the hot rods, there was a few years where fishing was reserved for a few weekends out of the year. I'd go to the family farm because it was a tradition. Maybe I'd make it to the farm once or twice out of the whole year. But the fishing never went away completely, but yeah, they sat in the closet. But other than that, I mean, growing up, that's all I did was fish. I skipped school to go fishing. I would be gone for weekends going fishing. So fishing wasn't new to me when I picked up fly fishing. But it was like starting over. It was like the first time fishing for me. Every time I went out fly fishing in the beginning. And a lot of the time it still is, depending on where I go. And that's what I think this is the third chapter in Reflection of a Fly Rod. It's not a chapter, it's a story. These aren't chapters. Reflections of a Fly Rod doesn't have chapters. It has short stories. And this is the third short story, and it's called Firsts. And this is why I think if you even have the slightest interest in trying fly fishing, and you already fish, and you're worried about, will I catch less fish fly fishing than I already catch spin fishing? Maybe it shouldn't be about that. This is to me what really got a hold of me when I put down the spinning rod and picked up the fly rod. So this is called Firsts. Firsts. Firsts are something special. First steps, first words, first day of school, first love, first kiss, first job, first car, first house, first baby. Firsts are something you normally don't forget. And even if you do, it only takes the slightest of hints in any normal day's event to bring the memories back to you from out of nowhere. Firsts are always of some importance, and then there's fly fishing firsts. Your first rod and reel, your first time trying to cast, your first snag tree, your first wind knot, your first lost fly because of a poor knot. You really thought you tied it right. The first trout to rise to your dry fly, and then your first miss at a rising trout. Your first thoughts that maybe you should just stick to your spinning rod. But there's something to this fly fishing thing. You can't figure it out, but when you decide you're going to go fishing, even though you've got the spinning rod back in your hand again, your first thought is that you should be trying the fly rod a little more, that you shouldn't give up your first attempt. You have to learn first before you can decide if it's for you. The first time you pick up a spinning rod after getting frustrated with the fly rod, then lay the spinning rod back down in the bed of your truck and walk back to the water with the fly rod. Then it begins to happen. Your first fish on the fly. You stand on the edge of a small pond, cast your first little foam popper. You let it sit for 10 seconds, and on your first strip, pop and pause, your first panfish on the fly. And now, for the first time, it all seems much more reachable. Like the first panfish on a worm below a bobber when you were knee-high to a grasshopper. This little panfish, like so many other panfish you've caught through your lifetime, this one suddenly feels like your first all over again. And in a way, it is. It only rolls on from there until one day, not far off, you stand in a river. Your rod flexes, loads, unloads, and loads again as you gain distance and finally let the fly line shoot forward through the guides. The line stretches out straight before you and seems to come to a pause and hover in midair before gently dropping, the dry fly falling and landing with hardly a disturbance to the surface. The drift is right, the placement where it needs to be, drifting directly over the rising trout you've been watching for a couple of minutes. There's a subtle take, not a splash, but merely a sip from below, and your fly is gone. Your first perfect cast, your first good drift, and your first trout on a dry fly. Since picking up fly fishing, every new fish caught on the fly rod, no matter how many I'd caught before on the spinning rod, it feels like a first all over again. My first fish on the fly rod was a 4-inch fall fish, a minnow. I watched them taking little brown bugs off the surface of the creek out back one day, tied on a little brown thing, and finally made the good cast and caught my first fish on a dry fly. I laughed, and then I gained some confidence. I bet I caught 10 of those little things that day. First panfish on a popper, first bass on a streamer. There were countless misses at trout on dry flies, until one day it finally happened. First trout on a dry fly. An 8-inch brookie at a spot everyone said it shouldn't have been. 5 minutes later, in the same spot, the first brown on a dry. A nice 12-incher that felt like a 20-incher because I hadn't felt a decent fish on the fly yet. They're all fish I've caught before on spinning rods, but now every new species checked off on the fly rod feels like a first all over again. When we keep getting older, it's nice to discover something that can almost make you feel like you're going back again. For someone that doesn't fly fish yet, this is their second chance at a first all over again. You point out someone to me that wouldn't love the feeling of the first time all over again, and I'll point someone out to you that's dead inside. There isn't a fish yet that didn't make me smile when I found it at the end of my leader, but there's a first for everything, I suppose. I'm waiting on my first rubber boot. On the fly rod, I bet they fight like hell. That is really what grabbed a hold of me when I started fly fishing. When things really started to happen, it was literally learning to fish all over again. Like you're a little kid, and you finally are patient enough to let that bobber sit long enough and actually hook something on the worm instead of picking it up every 10 seconds and putting it back out there, checking your worm every 10 seconds. When you start fly fishing and you start catching fish, it's like you just went back to being a kid again. You're starting all over, and it's awesome. That's really what got a hold of me with fly fishing. So if you think you have any interest at all in fly fishing, if you don't have a fly rod, you probably know somebody that fly fishes. If you do, that's probably why you have the interest in it. Ask them if you could go with them. I mean, get out there and give it a shot, because you just don't know what's going to happen. Me, it came at a point where I was getting out of, I had built hot rods and motorcycles and custom stuff for like 13 years. I was a blacksmith, all that, and I got burnt out on it. But I'm the type of person that when I get into something, I really get into it, and there was no way, as I was selling all my tools in my shop, my equipment, project motorcycle, everything I had. I mean, right down to the books and magazines that I had. I got rid of absolutely 100% everything. I also knew that something was going to have to replace that. And it's kind of funny that fly fishing came around at exactly that time and took over, and I've never looked back. We're going on, I think, 11 years now I've been fly fishing. To me, that's still not a long time. And I know that I still, on most days, I'm marginal at it. On a lot of days, I suck at it. In 1 or 2 days out of the year, I'm really, really good at it. But the whole thing is, you got to try it. So that is my advice. If you want a reason to try it, but you're worried about not catching as many fish as you do on your spinning rod, well, that's expected in the beginning anyways, because you're learning something new. But it's like starting all over again. It's like going back to being a kid and fishing for the first time all over again. Your first panfish, your first bass, largemouth, smallmouth, rock bass, your first trout, browns, brooks, rainbows, cutthroats, whatever you fish for out west. All those fish, if you're just starting out fly fishing, they're all going to be firsts. And it is cool. So that's what I wanted to make this quick video about, is if you know somebody who's thinking about it, but they're really not sure, listen, maybe it shouldn't be all about catching loads and loads of fish in the beginning. You'll get better. It should be about starting over and feeling like a kid again. Which is exactly what's happened to me. And at work, I feel like an old fart. And once I leave work, and I'm in my car with the streamer stuck all over the dash, and a fly rod in the rack up above me, and I get home, and I got all the fly fishing stuff around, I walk to the creek out back and go fishing someplace. At work, I feel like an old fart. Everywhere else, I'm surrounded by fly fishing stuff, and I feel like a little kid. And I'm trying to get better and better at leaving the old fart at work, and being at work. It's not that I hate my job. My job is great. I have a house because I have a job. But it's not why I'm alive. Fly fishing and being outdoors is become the whole reason to live at this point. And you just don't know. That could happen to you, or that could happen to the person that you get into fly fishing. And that would be credited to you. You did that. Their life is so much better because you motivated them to get out there and try it. So that's what I'm saying. All right. Give it a shot. You just don't know what's going to happen. Let somebody else try casting your rod. Take them fishing. You don't know what's going to happen. Reflections of a Fly Rod, Carper Jerks. They're both on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. I think if you got a Target gift card, you can even get them on Target's website. They are also available on Amazon as ebooks now. $3.69. You could have these both on your Kindle. I think that's pretty cool. Now that I did it, it took me a while to do it because I'm the old fart at work. Really likes to touch something, paper. But I did the ebook thing. What else do I want to try to sell you? Go to jprossflyrods.com. I got a blog on there, Streamer Junkie. But while you're there, check out the awesome t-shirts we have. They're these lightweight UV shirts, and they're all about unplugging and getting outdoors. Unplug, reconnect, reboot, recharge, all that stuff. And they're cheap. Everybody else's UV shirts are like $30. $17.99. And when you wear it, everybody's going to know that, yeah, you think technology sucks and you got to go to the mountains. So until next time, the next episode is probably going to be something about the Hobie kayak again. But until next time, think about fly fishing. Go fly fishing. Get somebody else to get into fly fishing. Get somebody else just to go fishing that doesn't fish. Get them out there. You don't know what's going to happen. My sign off, as usual, call in sick, go fishing. See you in episode 21.